you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. And take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Bad habit, bad news, bad economic crap. Again. New residential construction wasn't bad, just missed the forecast. Industrial production yesterday sucked. The housing market index, that hit an all-time high under the former president. Yep. Orange man bad, housing market index good. What do we got today? Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. In regular gear today. Been very, got a lot going on here. Let's look at Virginia today. We're going to talk to Matt Braynard about his report in Antrim County. We'll talk to him about some other stuff as well. Recap what happened maybe a little bit in Arizona versus what, he found. We'll do some stuff like that. All right, let's talk about the Virginia Gubernatorial Election, Paul. That's what everybody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about bad economic news, but perhaps that's why economics is all the rage in this election. Between the economy and jobs and cost of living, more than half of voters in Virginia pick those two issues. That really does bode well for a Republican election. And I would say that public education, public education / critical race theory is right around when you're looking at the core of who's going to come out here. They're almost tied with coronavirus. So you have more than half of, the electorate concerned about pocketbook issues and a very excited chunk caring about public education and critical race theory, while only about 35% of the electorate has even heard about what happened in Loudoun County. And taken together, what you got is a sampling error in the making. All right, so we should have them crunched and out today, which I will submit to CDM when I'm finished. All right, but it's going to be close. There is no doubt, though, for those who didn't watch the local stream yesterday, and you should do that. Sign up at Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right? Because you know this. Glenn Youngkin, as the Republican candidate, is running behind generic Republicans for the vote preference on the 2022 generic ballot. That very well could translate into state district-wide races. Okay, for the House of Delegates, I'm talking about. All right, Virginia has the old-fashioned House. All right, the rest of us call it the House of Representatives. If there's a bicameral system, which not every state has, by the way, little tip there. And for those districts, it is possible the generic ballot that we conducted will translate to that, for those who are wondering whether or not this election will swing that House back to Republican control. We didn't ask about it. I'm not going to tell you that for certain, but I will tell you that in the House election, if the congressional election was held today, the 2022 midterms were held today, then Abigail Spangenberger in Virginia 7 is done. She's running like 7 points behind, at least, as I'm looking at it, the Republican candidate. The House of Representatives is gone for the Democratic Party. If this is the way it looks in Virginia, it's freaking over. And it's never over this early, which is what I was telling Laura. I'm like, Democrats have this built-in polling advantage and have for a long time. And that's why you can go back and look. In fact, I think I have this. I do. Ooh. Unless high charts, when they changed to Everviz, they took it away. But we have this long-standing tracker which shows you the under or over or underestimate of polling support for congressional candidates. Okay, let me just type in Democrat. I think, or no, generic, maybe. Should be under generic. Boom. What? I got it. Hang on. I want to show you something because this is important. It's very important. These are the finals too, which is something to keep in mind. What I'm telling you as a pollster is that Democrats always overperform their share of the vote. Always. Underperform, excuse me, in the midterm elections. They won by about, it depends on how you count it, 7-8 points. It was D plus 7 to 10 national mood. They underperformed the LA Times poll by about 4.5 points. They underperformed a bunch of other polls by about 4 points on the generic ballot in that prior election, which is the point I was trying to make when I showed everybody this chart before 2018. All right. This was not going to be some 50, 60 seat landslide, blue wave. It wasn't. All right. In our generic ballot, they had about a 6-point lead. We came pretty damn close. All right. Republicans don't need a lead like that because of the way districting is. They don't need a lead like that to wipe Democrats off the map. And even to R plus 3 is bad news for Democrats, who have a tiny, tiny sliver majority. I agree, by the way. I saw that comment about 1994. Newt Gingrich was masterful in 1994. And by the way, he did it when Democrats gerrymandered the entire 20th century. They cry now about, oh my God, Republicans are going to redistrict in North Carolina and they're going to redistrict Texas 15 and they're going to... Shut up, you whiny little babies. Democrats gerrymandered the entire 20th century. They dominated the entire 20th century. So they got to jerry the hell out of those districts. And I'm telling you, looking at a 5-point lead statewide in Georgia and in Virginia, I can't help but to wonder, because I'm looking at Virginia and I'm looking at Georgia, and Laura and I were talking about this. Joe Biden would probably be in the 30s if we poll Georgia again right now, even though we had him at 41. It would probably be in the 30s because his approval rating is going to look in Virginia like it looked in Georgia. A state he won 54-44. And by the way, the raw sample, which I went over on the Locals live chat yesterday, is 58% for Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, at the end of the day, in this poll will show that Joe Biden lost between 10 to 14% of his vote. Of those who voted for Joe Biden, 10 to 14% of them now do not support Joe Biden. He is absolutely toxic on the generic ballot. He's going to drag Democrats down everywhere. And the reason why the gubernatorial election is still so close is because voters know who Terry McAuliffe is. Voters in Virginia, they actually don't give Glenn Youngkin that much of a jump on who you trust to handle the economy. Who do you trust to handle critical race theory and stuff like that? It's totally different. Of course, they would give the Republican the edge on that. But they know who Terry McAuliffe is. And there are some moderates that are going to vote for Terry McAuliffe as of now. Maybe not. Maybe they'll change their minds. They're very loosey-goosey. They can swing. But they're going to vote for Terry McAuliffe, and then they're going to vote for the Republican for the House. The Attorney General, the Democratic Attorney General, is going to win. I don't mean to just declare it and end it right now, but I can see why some other pollsters had him ahead. So with that said, yeah, I mean, look, Aiden, I just read your comment. Yeah, I get you on that. And by the way, Laura and I were going over the Raw this morning. This is how much it came in, okay? So District 2 and 3 should be about 8% of the overall vote. So for those who watched the locals live stream yesterday, this is why I always tell you, don't twist my arm. I can't give you, those kinds of margins. Computers do that for us these days, okay? But for instance, the 2nd Congressional District, Elaine Luria, she's like 15% of the Raw. Well, of course, that district is not going to make up 15%. This is why we always oversample. That district should be like 8%, 9 maybe. It's a an off-cycle election. 18 to 29-year-olds are like 16% of this. Folks, they're going to be like 9, 10. And we'll probably be generous with how much of the march share they make up here. But this is why you see the graph that you do on the screen right now. For several reasons. Democratic groups are more likely to want to pick up that phone, man. They're more likely to want to click on that survey. That's why you see all but one election cycle on your screen where Democrats overperform their generic ballot polls. In every other year, look at how far that dates back, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, look, boom. The disparity in 1966, 12%. The disparity in 1970, 7%. The disparity in 1974, 15%. In 1 year, the 1990 midterms, they overperformed by a measly, did you guys see it? I'm clicking back over here. A measly 2%. In every other election cycle, and by the way, I got to add 18. If 18 was added, you would see 4%. So it would be down like around here. Bang. All right. The bottom line is, this is a long-term problem. And yet, still, in early polling, we're not even to that next year yet. We're not into the silly season. In that early polling, Democrats, they just hold on to this tiny little edge until that Labor Day, pivot. And part of that is we move to a likely voter model. Most people do, We move to a likely voter model. Third parties, do they have any support? Yes, about 1.5% in Virginia. I saw your comment. I figured I'd just throw that in there. About the same as presidential, There's a lot of people who say, there's a lot of people who seem to think, yeah, but Aiden, overall, it did not. Overall, we did it. Overall, the 2010 generic ballot was hugely skewed. All right, 13%. They underperformed. Now I don't know. It really depends which ones you're looking at, but we didn't include everybody in that. All right. There are people. It's like apples to oranges. As I say, there's too many polls and not enough pollsters, and that is more true every year. Gone are the days of Gallup and the gold standard, and maybe a couple of media outlets who have been polling for a long time. No, everybody's got a poll today. Everybody. and their mother. And their mother's sisters, brothers, cousins, uncles, hands half removed, twice removed. It's ridiculous. Gotta measure apples to oranges here. But bottom line, massive point I'm trying to make here is that we typically don't see a Republican lead like this early. Now, is there something Republicans can do to blow it? Absolutely. Republicans are that stupid. They are incredibly dumb and cowardly. And nobody snatches defeat from the hands of victory like Republicans. Somebody on Locals the other day sent me this thing from McConnell's new biography. And I told you, he's grooming Senator Thune. That guy is the biggest chode, meant to look like a Ken doll or something. So if Republicans take it back, they're going to hand it off to John Thune. The base doesn't like John Thune. And Sebastian, 100%. Glenn Youngkin should be ahead of Terry McAuliffe by 6 points in this poll. I'm telling you. He has a couple of things he needs to do. One, only about a third, a little over a third, has heard about what happened in Loudoun County. That would be a number one issue for me. I would, everywhere I go, if I was Glenn Youngkin, I'd be talking about that. Sexual assault in a gender-neutral bathroom. Even voters in Virginia, in so-called liberal areas, don't want their daughters in the locker rooms and bathrooms with biological boys who don't realize they were born with a penis. I'm sorry, they don't want it. It's not right to them. You're going to see numbers like you saw on the first poll, the Public Polling Project. By the way, don't forget, share, support the Public Polling Project. BigDataPoll.com/Public Polling Project. You're going to see numbers very similar to that. And some people didn't really understand what was interesting. We asked about gender-neutral bathrooms. They didn't really understand it. They're just like, you mean like a bathroom? Like both people share? Like, oh, that's fine. And together at the same time? Whoa! Whoa! No! That's why they come up with these cute little names like gender-neutral bathroom. You know? Makes people think of like the family bathroom. Right? Oh, that's not men or female. That's gender neutral. It is a horrifying story. It's a horrible story. And I'll tell you what, right now, if that was my daughter who got sexually assaulted in that bathroom, I'm taking it out on somebody's ass. Sorry. You're not going to throw me out of a Board of Education meeting. No. That'd be the least of me coming to a Board of Education meeting and screaming at you would be the least of your damn problems. I'm going to scar you like you scarred my daughter. Worse. Whatever it is I come up with. You're going to live with it for the rest of your natural life and in the great beyond. That's how bad that's going to be on you. But the fact is, Glenn Youngkin is not pushing stuff like it. He's really not enough, because not enough people really even heard about it. All right, so yeah, Brandon, I'd be in prison too, probably. I mean, that's just the truth of it. What father wouldn't be, horrified and, mortified and flip out? And the second thing Glenn Youngkin is doing is that when you look at, how could I put this? Republican support by congressional district. You can see, for instance, out in Western Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, hell, even in Hampton Roads, all right, in the Southeast. Yeah, Youngkin is leading, but he's not leading by the margin that the Republican generic candidate is leading the Democratic generic candidate by. Why is that? We discussed this yesterday, and I strongly suspect It's a hard act. It's a hard balance to find between scaring away some urban voters by embracing Donald Trump in a state like Virginia and scaring away his base. It's very difficult, and I'm sure it is. But in the end, I am a base guy. All right, you can't scare your base away and win an election. I have never seen the so-called moderate really do better than the base loyal candidate. Not on the Republican side. Democrats are always acting like they're moderate, and they're not. But then Republicans try to echo that. And the truth of the matter is you're playing to two different audiences, and it doesn't work for Republicans. It doesn't. So you need to scare those suburban voters with your opponent, not with who you embrace or not. You're afraid that, Donald Trump coming to Virginia may scare the suburban voters. Maybe sexual assaults in public school bathrooms will scare them more. Maybe not having enough money at the end of the day will scare them more. It doesn't work for Republicans. Mitt Romney, John McCain. Do I have to keep going? George W. Bush did not run as a moderate. He ran as a compassionate conservative with a populist undertone. We cannot be the world policeman. And in 2004, he ran hard on values issues. You think George Bush 2004 would have ran away from the transgender issue? He campaigned against gay marriage. For crying out loud. No, it doesn't work. Martha McSally. I mean, John Cox. The list just goes on and on and on. It does not work. Bob Dole, Sebastian. Right. Exactly. And frankly, George Herbert Walker Bush, who only won because of a base president that everybody loved going to bat for him. This is, in the end, guys, in the end, it's like you learn the lesson or you don't. And in that side of the Republican Party, the people who run Glenn Youngkin's campaign, they believe these falsehoods. They are conventional wisdom. Edward Gillespie, Virginia. Who came the closest to beating Terry McAuliffe? Was he a moderate? Nope. He had no money, and he almost beat Terry McAuliffe when all of the polls gave McAuliffe a 7-10 point edge. What was his name again? Ed Gillespie got crushed. What's up there, Laura? What's the money differential? Democrats will always in Virginia. Oh my God. Democrats always outspend Republicans. But the money differential is going to be significant. That's a good question. I don't have them offhand, but because gubernatorial elections, they're not the same as congressional elections with filings and stuff. But you know what? We can go to. It's a good question. It's a really good question. It won't be the latest, but it will give us a bit of an idea here. And by the way, like Murkowski's, I'm looking at it right now on opensecrets.org. Murkowski and Cheney, they're out raising Trump candidates, Trump endorsed candidates. They're going to make this, they're going to try to use, they're going to try to use Democratic fundraising operations. As Virginia governor race tightens, McAuliffe and Youngkin report big fundraising numbers. Okay, this was September 23rd. And I have Matt coming on soon, so I'm going to abandon this soon. But stop the screen share. Okay. I think I could pull it up. I don't think it will freeze it. As the Virginia gubernatorial race between former Governor Terry McAuliffe and businessman Glenn Youngkin tightens, Youngkin raised nearly $4 million more than McAuliffe in the latest period, giving him a race-leading total of 35.2. But yeah, McAuliffe is McAuliffe still raised 31.8. So in that last period, and then that's on top of, 15.7 million that McAuliffe had before. Yeah, so he's got a little bit more. But in that last period, he caught up by almost 5 million. Ken Cuccinelli only raised 21.3 million for the whole period in 2013. All right, so, money matters. Of course it matters. But that's who I was talking about before, Ken Cuccinelli, when I was making that point. Ed Gillespie raised 29.3 million in 17. But Democrats, let's see, can we get some Ralph Northam numbers here? McAuliffe also got 4.6 million from the Democratic Governors Association. The Republican Governors Association gave Youngkin almost as much, about 4.5. All right, so that's not that big of a deal. I'm looking for McAuliffe's overall numbers. I said 15 plus was in the bank. Yeah, the Washington Post poll, McAuliffe 3-point lead, 50-47. Viewed this as a toss-up election. No kidding. I mean, it's that close. I'll tell you one thing. Nobody's been this close in polling in a long time. Nobody. And, I hate letting people twist my arm or anything, but it's going to be very, very close. So maybe McAuliffe has a little bit more than. Where is Youngkin's money coming from? Is it from Big Pharma and Chamber of Commerce? It's not a great sign. Youngkin and Company. Additionally, there have been 3 different. You know what? I can look that up, Angie. That's a really good question, actually, and I think that we're going to look at that right now. Glenn Youngkin entity details. Candidate contribution, ideology, single issue, finance, insurance, and real estate, unitemized contribution, construction, general business, then down the line, energy and natural resources. To be honest, he only got 364,127 from health entities. So that's not that much at all. Honestly, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's bought by Big Pharma. He's like some shill for now Terry McAuliffe got 3.2 million almost from Big Pharma and other health agencies. But he is 20,400,000 plus on ideology and single issue contributions. That's horrific. That means there are going to be people. That compares to only 6 million for Glenn Youngkin. There are going to be people who want something for that. These are people who are they're on issues. Like, I'm pro-abortion, I'm anti-gun. That's what that money means for Terry McAuliffe. His second largest contribution category is finance, insurance, and real estate. Third largest is labor, then big business, lawyers and lobbyists. Oh, God. Candidate contributions is a little less than 2.5 million. So Glenn Youngkin is, he gave him, a lot of this is coming from Youngkin and Company. I kid you not. A lot of it. What does that mean? Glenn Youngkin would be more of an independent governor. All right? That's what that means, and everybody knows it. Let's cut the crap here. That's the difference. That's why Donald Trump was allowed to keep all his promises. It's true. Not even allowed, but that's how Donald Trump was able to keep all his promises. He didn't owe anybody anything. Terry McAuliffe has "you owe me" written all over him in this financial report. I kid you not. I'm pulling it up. I'm taking the rest before Matt comes on. I kid you not. Share screen. McAuliffe. Here's Terry McAuliffe. Look at that. That very first one is ideology, single issue. I mean, ideology, single issue. That is bad. I don't know if he'd win big, Derek. If he wins, he's going to win by a couple of points. Maybe. It's a close race. Unless I'm completely misreading the raw data and he comes out and well, also too, it could be that it could be entirely possible that the likely voter model is totally off. Because Youngkin leads among people who are extremely enthusiastic. And we went over this on Locals yesterday. Youngkin's voters are much more enthusiastic. But that's why Democrats want to vote by mail so much. They think that it helps curb the enthusiasm gap. All right, but let's take a look at this before Matt comes on. This is horrible. Yeah, this is like a Pfizer montage over here. Ideology, single issue. That could be anti-gun. So if you're a Second Amendment person, you better not vote for Terry McAuliffe at all. You like gun rights? This is a problem. I mean, single issue right here means they're giving you money to do something about an issue when you get in. Period. End of story. Finance, insurance, and real estate is number 2, almost $11 million. What does that mean? Like, it's the governor's equivalent of like Wall Street. Okay. Labor. And that's what Virginia needs. More public sector unions. More power to them. Yeah, sure. General business. Lawyers and lobbyists, almost as much as his business interests. What does that tell you? They're one and the same. This is why nothing ever changes in this country. I'm looking at some of these races. Warnock, he raised for in the Senate. This is why nothing changed. You know how much money that is Raphael Warnock has in the bank for this Senate race? What would $25 million do for the people of Georgia, the downtrodden people of Georgia, the Atlanta metro area, the Black American in Georgia who's poverty-stricken, downtrodden communities? How much could all of that money do? I'm sorry, I'm just getting sick of the whole damn thing. I know it's the game, and believe me, I've been watching it for decades, but it's way out of control now. $1 billion on a presidential race. It's disgusting. We're disgusting people. And Democrats bitched about Citizens United. They work Citizens United better than anybody. Nobody does dark money like Democrats. Nobody. They complained about it. Barack Obama had, actually scolded the Supreme Court during the State of the Union address over that ruling. The money is absolutely right, Tenebris. It's disgusting. It's just a staggering amount of money that we spend on these fat slobs, lobbyists, and lawyers. Blech. Blech. Communications and electronics. Go Verizon Go. Cox. Right? All the people. Who did Donald Trump he couldn't stand? Who was that? Media, by the way. That's media too. Who was it that Donald Trump couldn't stand? It started with a C. It wasn't Cox. It was the other one. Man. What was it? I know, and people think this is the result of capitalism, Space and Go. It's exactly right. All right. This is probably one of the best book recommendations I could ever get. I could ever give to you guys, and you could ever get. Max Weber, The Spirit of Capitalism, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. And yes, Nathaniel, it's Comcast. Thank you so much. It was Comcast. That's Terry McAuliffe's number 6 category right there. Right? NBC, all the rest of them. But this, I'm telling you, The Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism. If you haven't read it, get it and read it. Everybody, every single American citizen should have to read Max Weber, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. Every single one. Why? Because this is not what capitalism looks like. This is what I call hologram capitalism. Just like we have hologram liberty in this country. It looks good, but try to reach out and touch it. This is fascism. This is not capitalism. Fascism and corporatism in some weird mix, all run by a bunch of leftists with a hive mind. It's crazy. This is not what capitalism looks like, as Max Weber rightly suggested. Capitalism was not born out of greed, the pursuit of wealth for wealth itself, mammonism. These are people who practice frugality. They did not pursue wealth for wealth's sake. They did so they wouldn't be a burden on their neighbor. Because God wanted you to work. It's an old Protestant idea called the calling. God calls you to labor. And you are entitled to the fruit of that labor. Because it came from you and is your right. Which is why healthcare could never be a right. Not unless doctors turn to be AI. Because that doctor is entitled. Yes, but it's pronounced Weber, Charlotte. But yes, you got it. He was a German sociologist. So it's not, it looks like Weber, guys. Just so people know what Charlotte's talking about. It looks like Max Weber, but it's Weber. Weber. Jesus. Benjamin Franklin invented the Franklin stove and wouldn't take $1 for it. Which Max Weber actually talks about. Why? Because he made money off the printing press already. And he felt that God gave him talents and that he should share those talents freely with his fellow man. And the governor of Pennsylvania at the time is like, what on earth are you thinking? Patent that puppy and make a fortune. And he said that wouldn't make me a very good Quaker now, would it? Which is part of Protestantism anyway. That wouldn't make me a very good Christian. I already have plenty of money. I will never be in danger of being a drag, a burden on my fellow man, my neighbor, my society, my community, my state, my nation. I am in no danger of being a burden to them. None whatsoever. So I will give this freely. There is something that separates us from antiquity. The pursuit of wealth in antiquity. And that's what Max Weber discovers and talks about in The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. It's, ironically, I remember undergrad, okay? Hold on. Let me blow my schnoz. I remember undergrad, and we spent like a week on a pamphlet that was 60 pages long written by Karl Marx. Max Weber's Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism is almost 300 plus pages, something like that. And we talked about it for like a day and a half. No wonder why we have the ignorance in this country that we have. And like Weber says, and people who have, talked about Weber, that book should be explained to every American citizen by the time they enter public school education system. Kindergarten. You don't pursue money for wealth's sake. That's not what makes capitalism capitalism. There's nothing that separates us from the pursuit of wealth in antiquity, if that's the case. The AOC definition of capitalism is bunk. It is not true. We have just forgotten it, unfortunately, along the way. We get that link out, Laura? We get that link out to Matt? Wondering what's going on here. He's usually used to using Rendezvous, but we're on StreamYard today. So he may be a bit confused. All right? 1 second. I'll tell you what, folks. Fall allergies could be worse. Oh, I'm sorry. I have the time wrong. Thank you, Madam Producer. Fall allergies could be worse than... Yep. Thank you, Madam Producer. Can be worse than spring allergies. I'm telling you. But that's all right, because the cold comes in and wipes it all away. Wipes it all away. Ha 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 ha! Yeah, Eric. Yeah. StreamYard for the win. The old reliable, right, Eric? The old reliable. That's a good one, too, Space and Goats. That's a good one. Blacklisted from history. I don't know what happened to this online book club we were supposed to do. I just don't want everybody to have to buy a book every damn week. I'm thinking, how on earth are we going to do this, right? How on earth are we going to do this? In order to become part of the book club, I'm going to dictate you guys buy books, yeah, North Carolina fall allergies, they are absolutely brutal. Telling you, Courtney, right on. Can't wait for the winter either, Laura. We're going to drive out west again. We're going to go see Mickey. That was his name, right? Somebody gave me a book a month, Laura says. That's reasonable, Laura. Maybe I can get PDF copies for people of certain things. I know I can Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism. If we talked about that, I got it, But, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, we're going to go out and see Mickey, who one of my followers. Last year, I kid you not, there was a Christmas tree shortage. Why? Barack Obama and Joe Biden. I kid you not. Because it takes time. The natural life cycle of these trees, it takes time. They literally almost killed Christmas, these people. What kind of a president? And by the way, look at McAuliffe. I'm leaving this up for a reason. Look at where his money comes from. This is why. Because Barack Obama and Joe Biden took all sorts of money from crazy environmentalists and their fanatic, members. And no joke, it didn't mean we weren't going to put this certain chemical down anymore. No. Only Barack Obama's donors were allowed to use this certain kind of chemical. Not small Christmas tree growers, the people who fill up lots, the people who give you a saw if you do that, which I love, going and cutting your own tree. No, if you were not Barack Obama's friend, you were not allowed to use a certain kind of pesticide, and your crops and your trees were ruined. So I had to drive 3.5 hours to the mountains of western North Carolina, thanks to one of my followers, to go see a guy named Mickey at, what was it, Laura? Hummingbird Farms? Right? Something like that? And they do this, awesome market, fresh market. There's all sorts of stuff there. Ciders, apples, corn, it's just awesome. There was still a bird's nest in my Christmas tree when I took it home. And it was the most incredible spruce I've ever, it was not a balsam fir. It was a Fraser fir, which, you can get at Lowe's a lot in the South. You people know what I'm talking about if you bought a tree from Lowe's, right? This was not a Lowe's Fraser fir, right, Laura? How incredible was this Christmas tree? I've never seen a tree that beautiful. And I'm a balsam fir kind of guy. I like balsams and others. I'm not a fan of Frasers. Man, we took this thing out. Yep, cider, old school diner, hot chocolate. It was great. It is America at its finest. Small town America is America at its finest. Wreaths, beautiful wreaths, all different sizes, shapes, made of different things. It just was a beautiful place to be. Small town America is real America. Big town America sucks. Big town America is everything that's wrong with America. Trust me, I know, I'm from one. You couldn't drag me back to dirty New York City if you tasered me first. I'm never going back. Thank God for the U.S. Army. Not only am I never going back to big town America, I'm never going back to the Northeast. That place is spiritually, economically, and morally depressed and bankrupt. Once upon a time, New York was gorgeous, ladies and gentlemen. Even the city was an amazing place to be. John Lennon was right. It was like Rome itself. Now it's a disgusting dump. There's nothing good about it at all. Small town America is absolutely God's country. That's right. I'm telling you, it's, It's not even close. It was a wonderful thing. I can't wait to go back out there. It was worth the drive. And I get this tree home with this beautiful bird's nest. I'm like, what is this? Is this a bird's nest? Oh my God. We went to the right place. By the way, who are you still here? Whoever gave me Mickey? It was one of you guys. I couldn't find a tree anywhere. I'm like, we like natural trees. I'm like, what the hell am I going to tell my children? I can't find a real Christmas tree anywhere because of Joe Biden and Barack Obama. Something they did 16, 12 years ago, whatever the hell it was. Holy moly. And somebody gave me Mickey's number, and it was awesome. I don't remember who it was, but they even called and they said, look, the People's Pundit's coming to get a tree. And it was incredible. Yeah, oh, you know what? I got to put Andrew up there. That's right. Upstate New York used to be, and Laura knows this, it's very, very sad for me, actually, because, Crom Pond, everything, even farther north, there was a little town that I used to love up there, right outside of Crom Pond, where they had Croton and the reservoir. I used to bass fish all the time, and I absolutely just loved it. Mohegan Lake. Oh, I caught a 12-pounder in Mohegan Lake. It was amazing. On a purple rubber worm with a pink tail. Or plastic worm, whatever you want to call it. I'm old school, it's rubber. But anyway, they come in, they destroy everything. I did hear Bear Mountain made a comeback, Andrew, though. I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that another company came in, and like a ski resort company, and took Bear Mountain in and made a comeback. My godfather, when he retired, from the life, he got a hotel on 9W, but he had guns, and eventually he left New York because you couldn't even whitetail hunt anymore. I mean, it was just ridiculous. So he left New York and he moved to Gulf in Florida. But yeah, I mean, basically, it was gorgeous up there. We used to ski Bear Mountain Inn. It had the whole display for, speaking of Christmas, it was like one of the first places to have like a robotic Christmas display. It was incredible. You could ice skate on Bear Mountain Lake. Deep, deep lake. But anyway, illegal immigration came in. What's her name? She ran for president last year. She was the congresswoman of that district, convinced the good rural voters of New York that she was going to be a moderate, was not a moderate, and next thing you know, no joke, folks, illegal aliens are sleeping under the benches in Bear Mountain Inn. I kid you not. I'm telling you, they destroy everything, these people. Love Peach Cobbler, too. All right. Kirsten Gillibrand. Thank you, Neo. She's so unremarkable, I nearly forgot her name. But look, it's only fair to show you Glenn Youngkin's filing as well, okay? Before we get Matt on here. It's only fair to show you his. Now, look, it's nowhere near Terry McAuliffe's, all right? That's, so McAuliffe overall, let's see where he's at. I mean, here's Youngkin versus McAuliffe. Youngkin, they said he raised a lot. It looks like a total of $42 million. Terry McAuliffe, he was at the 40s before Glenn Youngkin basically wrote himself a check for 16.6 mil. All right, so that's what caught him up. Interesting, right? Look at that first column right there. Youngkin was nowhere near that. Not even close. I mean, not even close. Until he wrote himself that check. There are 23,774 records under Glenn Youngkin. There are 42,420 under Terry McAuliffe. Oops, what did I do? I got rid of that? Sorry about that, guys. So, in other words, what does that mean? It means there are more people who are going to want something from Terry McAuliffe than there are from Glenn Youngkin. And since Glenn Youngkin wrote himself the biggest check that anybody wrote him, he would be a more. That's back to the to the point at hand. He would be a more independent voice, a more independent actor. So, he's not exactly a Chamber of Commerce Republican. He is, but he's not owned by them. If he wins, He won because of himself. Hang tight. 1 second. That's absolutely right, Andrew. Rent seeking. I mean, he's got less rent seekers coming after him. What are rent seekers? Special interest guys. Rent seeking groups. Let's see if I got another one. As a matter of fact, I think I do. Evolution, I think, is in the title. I'm searching by keyword here. Yeah, so rent seekers are basically special interest, right? You have to understand how Washington works, or government works in and of itself. It's run by people who are given money, and it's based on seniority, right? So the more senior you are, the more influence you will have. So rent seekers come because let me explain this. Everything is a quid pro quo. So you scratch my back, I will scratch yours. I support your bill, and then when it comes time, you will support mine. If rent seekers had to deal, theoretically, with a different Congress every 2 years or every 6 in the Senate, whatever it may be, they would have to buy new members every single time Congress changes hands or their seat changes, right? And that would just be too much damn money. All right? That would be, I see you, Laura. I got it. He's a 2-minute warning. That would be too much damn money for K Street to spend. So instead, these rent seekers, these special interest groups, they wanted people to have a higher tenure, all right, which is where we really got the 17th Amendment. It had nothing to do with one person, one vote. That's a load of crap. Treason of the Senate was great propaganda, but in the end, it led to this. That is the evolution of citizen legislatures to political careerism in the United States government. All right, the U.S. Senate is in red, and the blue is the House of Representatives. You can see the House of Representatives lags. What we're seeing here, Munby, Illinois, it was a Supreme Court case over whether or not Congress had the power to regulate grain storage rates. All right, they lost that case in the United States Supreme Court, and Congress was not allowed regulatory power over the environment the way that they had hoped to. Pollock v. Farmers, Loans, and Trust. That was really the end of it when they said, you know what, in order to get what we want to get. And by the way, they technically, rent seekers did win that. They just didn't win it as enough. And the dissenting opinion by the great dissenter himself was incredible. And what he basically said was, even though this is a smaller step, it's not the big step they wanted. Even though it's a smaller step, you are changing the relationship between the state and business in a fundamental way. And it will lead to Congress selling their power to regulate the economy to rent seekers, special interest groups. And that is exactly what happened. But in order to really get that, they needed taxing power. In order to give their rent seekers competitive advantages, regulatory power was great, but the power to tax is, individuals directly is where it's at. All right? So the bottom line is that's when it all went awry. Because once the 17th Amendment came in, they really had the power to give away competitive advantages to hurt some people, hurt other companies. And that's why you see that graph. What is it measuring here? The average tenure of a lawmaker. All right. And before the 17th Amendment, the average tenure was less than a full term, which is incredible. I know. But God forbid you have those pesky state legislatures yanking back a corrupt senator whenever they want. We can't have that because we just bought that SOB. So we're going to move to direct elections instead. I'll tell you what, folks, ladies and gentlemen, I'd happily give up my damn vote to go back to it. I would. I would in a heartbeat. I'm telling you, I would give up my vote for the U.S. Senate in a heartbeat to go back to the original design because the founders were smarter than us. We got duped. Anyway, let's bring on Matt Braynard from Look Ahead America. Matt, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining us.
Better than Custer. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Coming to you from Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. To get into what we are talking about. But, first and foremost, you've been up to a lot lately, that's for sure. And I got that report from Antrim County from Look Ahead America, and I really think it's important to talk about because I felt, and I know others who feel the same way, I felt after the election in November, when we were talking about discrepancies, things that can be improved, this conversation really went off the deep end, and it allowed the media to paint us all with the same brush, right? So any effort to look into irregularities, any effort to look into illegal ballots, any effort to look into where we could just beef up integrity in our elections was basically deemed a conspiracy theory, part of the big lie. And there were certain efforts, and the machines were one of them. And I'm one of those people who think, there is places where we can improve this stuff, Matt, without a doubt. And we have talked about this before, making open source, machines that use open source, documentation instead of having experts come in and cost the state a ton of money. But really, this Dominion conversation went off the rails. So Look Ahead America did a report on one of the most well-known instances of the machines going awry. And what did it find, first and foremost? Tell people what you found happened when the votes flipped in Antrim County.
Well, I'm first very excited about this new direction that research group at Look Ahead America is moving into. Originally, they had been isolated to looking at examples of illegal ballots being cast. You saw that in our reports in Georgia and Wisconsin, the report we're working on now in Arizona. Then we started moving and expanding Look Ahead America's research group into analyzing legislation to determine if it's good or bad at advancing the cause of voter integrity. But then something sort of came up where we got a question about, well, something happened in Antrim, and there's been a lot of claims about what really went down there. So I said to research group, oh, let's do an analysis. Let's do our own review, because there are so many different parties that were involved with this. You had some internet security group that does, election fraud stuff. You had a law firm. You had the Secretary of State. You had the local clerk. You had the Michigan State Senate investigated. You had another independent analyst that came in and reviewed everything. So all of these, none of these were really accordant with each other. So we want to write one final report that would sort of set the record straight in terms of what happened. You saw the initial draft that we put out. We'll be putting out the final version probably within the next hour on our website, lookaheadamerica.org, which has a few minor tweaks that we think make the report even stronger. But essentially what happened was, when you have an election in a county, not everybody gets the same ballot. Right. And because you have districts in the county, like these people are in this water district, these are in the other water district, this school district. So every precinct, essentially, the purpose of the precinct is everybody in the precinct is supposed to get the same ballot. That's what sort of defines a precinct. And just one precinct over, even if they vote in the same physical location, they often get a different ballot, because even a congressional district line can just slice between it. So you're voting for two different people, or two different groups of candidates. So what happened is that through all that complexity, there was a human error that miscoded some of the precincts machines. And when you sort of, these machines are not easy to program to begin with, but it sort of offset candidates by one increment, which caused President Trump and Biden's votes to get mixed up. This was recognized, it was fixed, but it was human error. But in the investigation of it, in our own investigation of it, we found that while it was human error and it was not intentional, that there were a lot of other problems with these machines that we believe should lead to their decertification and replacement with an open source alternative, which would prevent this from happening in the first place. Notions of these machines being hacked, notion of this being some effort to steal an election, we found that there's little to no evidence of that, and many of the claims of that are easily debunked. Yeah. In some ways, what I feel is like, and I want your audience to know this, because you know this, I know this, but I think people need to understand something, is that in politics, if you can raise money by doing something, whether it's right or wrong, you're going to do it. And one of the things that raises a lot of money is the idea of investigating or exposing voter fraud, right? Because for some reason, especially low dollar donors, but even high dollar donors, they think that, oh, I will give a contribution because this will help save the country, because it will undo or reverse the election, et cetera. And it's very important to them. So they out of a goodness of their heart, they write a check, they hit the donate button, right? From big donors down to little dollar donors. What this introduces, though, is a lot of unsavory characters that want to convince you that yes, I will prove, I can demonstrate it. And I'm not going to name names here, but I know that one very prominent, well-meaning individual offered
well-meaning, yep,
patriotic guy offered $3.5 million to people to find voter fraud. He found somebody who said, yeah, I'll find it, put together a bunch of interesting screenshots and PowerPoints and claims about vote switching all over the country. No evidence behind it, not going to reveal the evidence behind it. I have secretaries of state calling me saying, hey, my voters told me there were 10,000 or so voters switched to my state. How do I explain this? And I say to him, well, you got to ask those guys for the evidence. And these are real, like this is Real's world. These are people who are secretaries of state in very prominent, important states who've been elected to office, having to respond to sort of these clown world accusations. And they're kind of caught in the middle of it. And the clown world is not providing with any actual evidence, no response at all, not even an attempt to manufacture of it, just no response at all. It's there are 10,000 votes switched in your state. Secretary of State says, well, okay, let's see some evidence because we got to fix it because these voters, my state, have heard this, they believe it, they're very upset, and then radio silence, nothing. And I think that has, unfortunately, in a small way, infected the discussion about what's happened in Antrim. Is basically it becomes a grifter magnet. And look, when I was trying to raise money for Look Ahead America over the last 4 years to do voter registration, I got pretty much nowhere. But when Voter Integrity Project burst onto the scene in January, we raised more in about, I was trying to raise for 4 years the amount of money we raised in 1 month. Yeah. Now, granted, it was a hot topic at a hot time, and we spent it all. We documented it all on a public spreadsheet. Everyone can see physically download the receipts of everything we bought and spent. But people were excited about that, and other people recognized that too. You may know another outfit. I'm not going to name any names, but an organization that works in this field told a donor if they gave them $2 million, that they would overturn the election. The donor gave them $2 million. Nothing happened. The donor suing them to get it back. So again, it wasn't our intent to really bust anybody by doing our own Antrim analysis. Somebody had asked about it. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And again, there are real problems in Antrim, as you said in the beginning. There are real problems with closed source voting equipment, which applies to Dominion, which is that you cannot examine the software code. You cannot service the equipment yourself. You have to go out of state or out of country to get it serviced. There's all kinds of problems, and it's also a lack of transparency in terms of how the machines work. The people who buy the machine are not allowed to open it up with a screwdriver. And the problem is that there's really good case and there's good argument to be made of that in the outcome of Antrim. Unfortunately, it gets buried under all this nonsense. Yep. And I'm glad we were able to write the report, and I'm glad that we have somebody like you who is smart enough to understand what's really going on and can shine a light on it.
Yeah, I mean, and everything you just said creates this environment, for everybody to unfortunately take advantage, or for these, these theories to take root and then run amok, and it becomes very hard to disprove or very hard to back that conversation up so you don't miss what really is important. And look, anytime there's going to be machines and humans are interacting with those machines, there's potential for human error. On election night itself, I was glad it happened at like 3:30 in the morning because people didn't really see it. But all of a sudden on the map, and it was just the information we received, all of a sudden on the map, Wisconsin went yellow for Joe Jorgensen because Milwaukee made an error and inputted this ridiculous amount of votes for Joe Jorgensen. Thank God, Matt, it happened in the middle of the night and nobody was looking. Only the very few people, diehard people who are up, asked, hey, what's going on? What happened? It was a simple error. They corrected it. It happens. Humans make mistakes, and they fixed it. But in this case, one county, and what I'm glad you did this report. One county became, well, look, it happened in Antrim. It happened in Antrim, so it must be proof that they did it elsewhere. It just wasn't caught. Well, that's not really what happened. So, but it's difficult to back it all up because in the end, there are problems with, like you just said, with Dominion, and it's now all getting closed off. And some people ran amok with it. Same thing, happened. I spent a day during that time period you were talking about. We were doing our own work in Georgia and Michigan. I had to spend a day on the phone with PolitiFact and Snopes trying to explain what I really meant because people like that, and we don't have to name names, but they took something I said about change of address flags in a certain county and immediately, well, change of address flags must mean that many ballots were submitted. And I had
Yeah.
it's ridiculous,
I remember seeing in one prominent, and I'm sure this happened to you too, in one prominent again, I'm not going to name the individual, very well-meaning guy, used several numbers that we created in a video about, let's say, proof or absolute proof of the election being stolen. And because I remember watching the video and seeing, oh wait, those numbers had to come from us because it matched with, what was on a spreadsheet in some of our presentation, but they were not used correctly, and they were claimed to be something different than what we had claimed they were when we produced them, when we published them. And and I tried. In fact, I ran into this individual at a prominent political conference. I walked up and say, hey, my name's Matt Braynard. I saw you use some of our data. I'd like to talk to you about how we can use it better. I had no interest in really having a conversation, which was very perplexing to me. But again, and this also happened in the aftermath election, which is something interesting. I don't know if we have time to talk about it, but I'm in Arizona now doing town halls across the state featuring the liaison to the Senate, Ken Bennett. We did our first one last night. I'd be happy to talk about that a little bit. But again, in the aftermath, there were some real problems with people casting ballots who shouldn't have been allowed to, with illegal ballots. But the focus became these really sort of bizarre claims where you had a bunch of people who had no background in election administration, in election engineering, I guess is what you could call it, where they would start doing their own research and then discover, oh, there's some serious problems here, when in fact it was just a misunderstanding of how elections work.
Yeah, we do have time to talk about it, actually. We do. If you do, we do. Because
I do.
We didn't get a chance to talk to you too after the audit came out. There were a lot of confused people about, and the media contributes to this because they get pieces of the report before it comes out, Matt. And they make these ridiculous declarations about, snippets and what, about the conclusions of the entire report based on, a little bit of leak that they got ahead of time to try to get in front of the story. And once again, what that, very important things that which I was actually surprised. I didn't think that report would be as thorough on certain things, but it was, and it just all got buried because people, well, see, it didn't. It proves Donald Trump did not win Arizona. Moving on,
and some people read it and thinks it proves the opposite as well.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Which is a kind of an interesting. It's almost like the reading of the Bible, where people can come away with completely different interpretations. Well, let me tell you about the town halls. Is that, well, first of all, Look Ahead America is doing our research group, which I'm very proud of, which is led by Ian Camacho, who's doing a phenomenal job. In fact, I think I'll have him come on your show next time we have something to talk about. But we're producing our own report on Arizona that's focused on, I think, which is really actionable things, which are illegal ballots cast. We've identified a large number in Maricopa. We're now looking at the rest of the state. And we have some unusual circumstances, too, where we have cases of individuals who say they did not vote, yet are marked as being signature verified. And we'll talk about that when we release the Arizona report. So my role here is, as part of we have a special project here called Look Ahead Arizona, where ideally we'll get to the point where in every state there's going to be a Look Ahead California, Look Ahead South Carolina. That's where we're able to make a major financial investment into the state to bring on field staff to do voter registration and other kinds of community organizing. Well, guess what's an important part of community organizing? Holding public forums where government officials and public officials can be held accountable by the public. So that's our role here, and we have Ken Bennett, the Senate liaison to the audit, who's doing 4 of these, and we actually may do a 5th, a virtual one, because we've gotten a lot of questions from people who can't make it, and I think Ken's a really good sport. So I haven't told him this, but I feel like we're going to do a 5th one that's just him and me in front of the camera, just him taking one question after another. But people will have the opportunity to come and ask them questions. And a lot of people, and I'm not taking sides in the town hall, and I'm because I want to be a neutral moderator of these town halls, I'm taking anyone's side at all. But a lot of people are very angry at Ken, and this is their opportunity to hit him with questions, to ask him, to hold him accountable. Our first one was last night here in Tucson. We'll have another on Thursday night, a very big one in Scottsdale, which is a kind of a suburb of Phoenix. It's in Maricopa County. And then next week we'll have 2 more, one in Prescott at the Prescott Gateway Mall, and then another one in Lake Havasu, which is a really beautiful part of the state. And then we'll probably do our virtual one at some point. But this is an opportunity for people to come out and ask questions. And I'll tell you, last night, I was a little bit surprised because I was expecting people to ask him really hard and difficult questions, like challenging him. But for the most part, it was more like, what does this really mean? Like, one of the things you hear a lot about is duplicate ballots. So somebody who doesn't understand what a duplicate ballot is hears something like, I don't know, there were 20,000 duplicate ballots without serial numbers. That, to understand what that really means and how the audit handled that is a solid 5 to 10 minute discussion. If you don't understand what those terms mean, getting to the point. Now, if you don't understand what they mean and you want to believe that there's something more to that than there is, somebody just throws that number at you and you're completely convinced that it's, that is in itself evidence of a stolen election. So that's, again, why the complexity of the issue in some ways assists the people who are, I think, being a little bit dishonest about what really happened or what's in the report. And you know how duplicate ballot means sometimes a ballot comes in where it cannot be read by the machine because it got crushed in the mail, or a military voter casts a ballot and that comes in through email. So they have to duplicate that ballot. A government official kind of fills out another ballot exactly the same. They put a serial number on both of them and to sync them up, and then the one gets counted as the one that's recreated because it goes to the machine to authenticate it. Well, sometimes they didn't write serial numbers on both of them, which is sloppiness. But if they're out of, we're getting the weeds. This is complicated. But what the audit did is, when that was the case, they just used the original ballots. So the duplicate ballot wasn't considered accounted if that was the case and they were out of sync. And even if they were out of sync, as long as there's still the same number of them, there aren't more duplicates than there are originals, then even without the serial number, it should still tally up. The potential is that the government official who recreates the duplicate ballot, maybe they do something they shouldn't, where let's say it's a vote for Biden, they say, well, I'm going to make this one for Trump. And the absence of the serial numbers means that, well, it can't be traced back to check. But what the audit did was they didn't consider the duplicate ballot in those cases, and they just used the original one because they can read it, because it doesn't have to be machine readable when you're sitting there with 3 people in a lazy Susan spinning it around, which is how they did the hand count.
Right. Yeah, it's just but again, it's good that you're going through the basics of some of this stuff, because in order to really have a conversation about it, and people are going to make videos, people are going to have segments on cable news about it. Viewers have to understand the basics. And that was really a major problem. And that's how certain things like votes going overseas gets perpetuated, stuff, because you don't have the basic understanding of how elections are conducted in this country, which is not standardized. Right. It's from county to county, let alone state to state.
And I can say that there are, and what I just went through in that explanation of the duplicate ballots, okay, now there's like 20 of those things that are just that complicated, that are just that difficult to understand. I mean, the other case that I hear that was actually probably really troublesome was that I think it was either 40 or 70,000 more absentee ballots were cast than there were envelopes for absentee ballots, right? So that to somebody sounds like, oh, those were fake ballots, or why were 70,000 more absentee ballots counted than were sent out. And that was reported by, I'm not going to name names, but somebody with some significance connected to the audit. And then President Trump, at an event that night, somebody just handed it to him and said, oh yeah. And he repeated that as if that was evidence of fraud. The reality is that absentee ballots are a category that is kind of a catch-all for both those that are sent out in the mail as well as those that are cast in person at the office. I personally am going to go cast my early absentee ballot in person in Virginia when I get back there next week. That will not be sent out in the mail. So what really happened is that people showed up and voted at the Maricopa offices where they, because they set a bunch of them up where people could go vote. So nothing was sent out, but those were counted alongside all the others that were sent out as the absentee ballots. So that explains the deficit. But if you don't know that, because you haven't worked like I have it for, good Lord, since 1994, for about 10 years. I like to say, I've worked in elections for 10 years longer than Mike Lindell's been making pillows. But if you don't have that background of experience, then it does sound very nefarious. And again, if you have the Fox Mulder syndrome, where you want to believe something, you will. And again, it just distracts, because I believe, and I've demonstrated, I think beyond a reasonable doubt in several states so far, the margin of victory was surpassed by the number of illegal ballots. The deserved winner of the presidential election. Well, you're on YouTube. I don't know.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right, never mind. Let's not go down that road.
I know what you're going to say, and we can. You could say that the margin of victory, the questionable records was larger than the margin of victory. So we just don't. The truth is, I don't think anyone knows for sure. I think that's safe to say. But I think
that's true, and I think we proved that. I just don't want to get you in trouble on YouTube.
Yeah,
but let's leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Would you say though, Matt, that simplicity would help a lot here if we could, it would be great if this could be bipartisan. I remember the days after Bush.
Well, the audit was bipartisan. The audit was bipartisan, but the media buried that. One of the guys at the forum last night at the town hall was the Democrat counterpart he was a Bernie bro or whatever. He's very far left wing. And there were several, and there was a libertarian there too. But of course, it was a right wing Trump audit, which is what the media reported as.
Yeah, and some of those statewide Democratic leaders helped them with that. The Secretary of State, they figured, if we don't participate or have a public showing that we're participating, then we can try to paint it as that later on. And that's a shame, because I remember Bush v. Gore. And then Florida after that, Democrats and Republicans alike, basically said, I never want to be embarrassed as a state like this again. What can we do to make this better? And, it would be great if we could, in that kind of spirit, come together and do that, because, I think everyone can agree that any kind of distrust in the outcome of an election, Matt, is bad for self-governance.
Right. And the biggest obstacle throughout the entire audit process was the Maricopa Board of Elections, which is run by Republicans.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. Finish your thought.
No, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So the media coverage of this audit, to be clear, the audit is still ongoing. And again, Ken can speak for himself, but one of his points is that he thinks that the audit is a success, and it's a continuing success, because there are other parts of it that are still continuing. It's not done. But again, I just want to get back to the fact that a lot of people, at least online, when we first announced this, were extremely angry at us at Look Ahead America for daring to hold a forum with him, because I had emails describing him as a traitor, as controlled by CCP, etc. I'm not denying any of the accusations that are coming against him. But my point is that, look, we have to be able to have these kinds of forums. Look, if you're angry at him, if you think he's wrong about things, if you think he's evil, a traitor, come and confront him.
Take advantage of this opportunity then. I mean, right. Have a conversation about it.
And we actually did something at this town hall, and I kind of want to do it, but I want to continue doing it, but I feel like people are taking advantage of it, is that after they ask the question, typically at a town hall, you get up, you ask a question, the politician, if he doesn't want to answer it, he dodges it, and you're done, right? But I offered everybody the opportunity to do a follow-up. Now, unfortunately, people took advantage of this, not understanding what a follow-up is, and just asked a second, very difficult question. All right, fine. But I mean, I was hoping that, if they were unsatisfied with with Ken's answer, they would, hey, wait, you didn't say, I asked you this and you dodged the question. Will you please answer the question directly? You give them a real opportunity for follow-up. So we even allowed for that because, we want to run a robust one. And look, we can do this more often. We'd love to have, look, there's no reason that debates in this country have to be surrendered to like the League of Women Voters or all these hard left groups. Look Ahead America in these states can be not just a forum for candidates, but a place, we've got upcoming elections. We're nonpartisan. We don't endorse candidates or parties, but we can host forums where candidates debate. And that's why we're really, at the end of the event last night, I said, look, we've seen some problems. We've heard about problems with the election system. How do you fix them? Well, sign up for Look Ahead America and volunteer. We'll put you to work. And we need leaders all across the country to step up and help us with our community organizing efforts. This is community organizing, holding a debate for your school board members, holding them accountable on issues like CRT. That is community organizing. And we really need folks in your audience to step up and look up and go volunteer with us through lookaheadamerica.org, fill out the volunteer form, and we'll be getting in touch with you real soon on how you can become effective in your state and do things like what we're doing here in Arizona with our town halls.
And by the way, we're going to have a poll in Virginia coming out really soon on the governor's race. And one of the questions we asked was about the controversy in Loudoun County and how many people were even aware of that, Matt. This is another way not to rely only on a campaign to get out a message about something that may have happened, but this is another way to increase that number we were talking about in a prior segment. I was shocked at how many people really didn't hear any. They heard no news stories or recent reports about what is going on in Loudoun County. And, that's not only on a campaign, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. It's funny you say that, though. It's funny you say that because, I'm just taking off my nonpartisan, nonprofit, community organizer hat for a moment. I work as a political consultant all across the country. And I talk to a lot of candidates. When I'm probably the most aggressive campaign consultant in the country in terms of finding new clients. In the last election cycle, 2019, 2020, I spoke to 548 Republican candidates for House and Senate to try to get them to sign me as a consultant. So far this cycle, I've spoken to about 360. I've got a spreadsheet because I track it all.
You track it, yeah. You got to keep track of that information. Absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of the folks that I talk to, it's not appropriate for them to be running for federal office to begin with, because if they file a form with the federal government, that's free. It doesn't cost them anything to do that. Many people just do that and say, hey, I'm a congressional candidate, right? And one of the things I explain to them is the value of money in campaigns. And everyone you hear rants about campaigns are too expensive, or why is it all about the money? And I have a lot of people tell me, I'm going to run, I'm going to win, I'm going to do this. No, I don't need a lot of money. No, I've never run for office before. I'm running for Senate, for example. Just spoke to somebody, said they were running for Senate, had never run for any office before, did not do anything adjacent to politics, like be a football coach, a champion football coach, like a Tuberville type, right?
Yeah,
who's adjacent and can move in.
It's like the
or
Trump
a celebrity.
Syndrome. It's like the Trump syndrome. Yeah, he led a lot of this. Has led after post-Trump. I hear this all the time.
Yeah, or like a true war hero type like Joe Kent, who is 20 years of service and is actually probably just incredibly articulate on issues, and just blows me away every time I hear him talking.
He's a star, Matt. He's a
so
star.
They've got none of that, and they've got none of that. And the only way you can bypass that is now you have to buy your way in. And why is money so important in politics? Well, first of all, it's a signal to others who could possibly help you of how successful you'd be as a candidate, because raising contributions, particularly small dollar contributions, the traits you need to do that are not terribly dissimilar from the traits you need to convince somebody to vote for you. Convince somebody to donate is similar to getting somebody to vote for you. But the second is that campaigns are really expensive, especially if you have not established yourself with the constituency. And what I say is that, look,
I was just ranting about how disgusting, though, these numbers have gotten.
Actually, I remember seeing that tweet. I see that tweet, but here's why it's so expensive. Is that, look, you just said that maybe your poll will show this, how most of the people who decide elections are mid to low information voters. What you would like in an ideal world is all the voters, they look up the speeches from the candidates, look at their websites, research, the speeches, their voting history, and say, and then meditate for a few hours about who really deserves my vote. That's not how it works. Campaigns have to grab the voter by the neck, shove their message down their throat, and hope that they like it.
Yeah.
And that is extremely, extremely expensive, especially if you don't have a history. Look, somebody that I help out is a guy running down in Florida, Anthony Sabatini. Now, the thing that he's a very successful candidate so far. He's raising a lot of money. He's a phenomenal candidate, right?
Yeah, he's aggressive.
He's very aggressive. He calls out the rhinos. It's unprecedented for a member of the state legislature in Florida, a Republican, to take shots at the Republican speaker, but he doesn't pull punches. He's just daily riding them for falling out of alignment with the America First agenda, or not respecting medical freedoms as such. He's a very good candidate, and he's very successful at raising money. He's done that very well. But the thing is that he represents a district in the congressional district in the state legislature. So the constituency there already know him. They already like him. They've already voted for him repeatedly. And so because of that, it's easier for him because of his background. It's not as expensive for him to convince voters to support him for Congress because he has shown respect to the constituency by running for a lower office, getting to know them, giving the opportunity to trust him, and building his reputation with them. And he's also done a lot of things in the state where he has sued up and down counties who try to implement the, I think, mask mandates, contrary to the right. So he's led that. So he's done a lot to raise his profile, to prove his fidelity to constituency. And he while he is very successful at raising money, it's not as important to him as a candidate who just woke up one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to run for Congress," because they don't have that institutional relationship with the constituency. And a lot of folks think I'm run for Congress, it's all about the ideas I have in my head. It's not. It's about the relationship, the respect they have for the constituency, and back and forth. And that is very important. And it's, you may be a great debater, you may be able to debate circles around somebody else, but if that person is well known and trusted by the constituency in the same way that Anthony Sabatini in Florida has, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you're not going to be able to overcome that. And if you have no money, well, forget about it.
Yeah, that's that word you use, that really is it. Relationship. I mean, it really is about that. They have to know you and they have to trust you. He took on my kids' school district that would not comply. It was fantastic, and won, by the way. They had no choice in the end. But yeah, I mean, one, I think, along with, I think it was Broward was the other one who refused to comply. But you know what?
Broward County, surprise, surprise.
Alachua and Broward County. Yep. So, God bless it though, right? Because it is unknown almost. It's a good old boys club in that state house. It is. And to go outside of the, to go on Twitter like he does and take a shot. Why don't we have a bill right now? With, and I see my wife over here going, cheering because he did do that. We need a bill protecting people's right to take, or not take a vaccine, for instance. He was very aggressive. And that doesn't normally happen. I mean, guys, Marco Rubio once led that house. So, I mean, good, just take that for what it's worth. And then also you found some good talent. I mean, there's no doubt about it, man. I mean, Joe Kemp was on the show before his campaign took off. You've found some really strong candidates this cycle. And I think one, which I don't want to let them know, I don't want the Democrats to know he's coming. But I really think you're going to have Jocker out west.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't disclose the candidates that I work for
not
until they decide to disclose themselves. But yeah, there's some you probably aren't aware of that I'm very proud of the work that they've done. And, when you look at what makes for a good candidate, I think probably the first and most important thing is humility, because a lot of people, when they run for office, I almost exclusively work for people who've never run before, but their willingness to do difficult things that are unpleasant, that are not the kinds of things that when you imagine running for office, or you watch television or something, you say, oh, that's what a campaign is. It's just a bunch of glad handing, going to parties and standing up and giving great speeches in front of rallies. A lot of it involves sitting in a quiet room, dialing and hitting voicemail all day to basically raise the money you need. And the willingness to sit down and do that, to hustle for fundraising, is just, to some people, it just doesn't sit with them. They just can't bear it. They don't like asking for money. But it's really important. And it's, again, not dissimilar from as we get closer to election day or primary day, from what they need to do to convince people to vote for them. And yeah, I'm just very blessed that, and some of the folks I'm talking about, that they are just beasts when it comes to sitting down, buckling down, and making those calls.
And they're good on a personal level too. I mean, just some diamonds in the rough. I got it. I tell people this, but it's true. And I'll say this before I let you go. If it had not been for 2020, what happened in November, I don't think we would be seeing some of the real talent that we're seeing coming out of nowhere, out of the woodwork. People that have never run for office before. Republicans aren't known for having a deep bench every year, Matt. They're not, and I really think that, Democrats this time are going to get out worked on the talent area.
Yeah,
I do.
it's really tragic. It's sort of it's bittersweet, I guess. And that,
Yeah,
I mean, you would not know me
that's
if
right.
if President Trump had won handedly. I would not have started the voter integrity project. That would not have exploded. We would not have had $80,000 left over after the voter integrity project to start Look Ahead America. And Look Ahead America, which is now employing 14 people full time all across the country with a projected budget for this year of around $1 million, would not exist. That's it. And I probably would continue to consult for candidates, but I know that some of these candidates would probably have been off the board if President Trump had won, because they go work in the administration or something like that. So, I mean, I guess the point is that out of tragedy, sometimes you just have to keep working and find and remain optimistic and continue working hard in the face of tragedy, and you'll still find opportunities. And that's what many in the Republican Party have found, putting aside the partisan hat. That's what many in the America First movement have found. And that's, and it was a really big wake up call. And it's funny to say this, is that I started Look Ahead America, nonprofit, nonpartisan, 4 years ago. It went nowhere. And I remember when my wife telling me that, look, maybe it will take President Trump losing for people to realize the importance of community organizing. Well, I think they're starting to get the message now of why we need community organizing, aggressive voter registration efforts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's it's like what is it called? Not a Pyrrhic victory, right? No, I'm thinking of Pyrrhic victories totally. But I've said this before, and it is true. Democrats have gotten creamed, for 30 years almost. They could barely touch the White House, man. And they just kept their head down. They kept doing the hard work, and they found those small victories in between. And over time, those efforts now are paying huge dividends. And there's a lot of catch up on the community organizing side that the right has to do. And that's what it takes. Sometimes it just takes losing. All right, well, tell people what they, where they can. I put up the website before. I'll put it up again.
Sure.
But tell people, how they can participate. And what you got going forward, how they can help.
Well, look, if you're in Arizona, we strongly encourage you to come out to our town halls. I will also be streaming them online. Go to lookaheadamerica.org/town hall to RSVP or to watch the live streams of these when they happen. But we depend on the support of people who believe in our cause. So if you can sign up to volunteer or make a contribution, go to lookaheadamerica.org. We'd be very grateful, especially for volunteers, but also for contributions. I mean, these town halls cost money. We have to rent these halls. There are other expenses involved with it, travel expenses, etc. And we have full-time staff out here on the ground registering people constantly. While I was here in Tucson, we had field staff back in Maricopa County at an Ant Culture event, and we registered 6 new patriotic America First voters. That pays off, and it's difficult work. It's also expensive work. So anything people can do to help us out with that is appreciated, but also a great investment in the future of the country.
Without a doubt. Well, keep us posted, Matt. Always a pleasure having you back on. We'll see you back soon.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
All the best. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard him. Go check out what he's doing. This stuff, like, those 6 people, right? Arizona is a close state. You're going to see some nail biters. Every 6 counts. Democrats know that. Republicans don't. And believe me, it matters. Arizona and Georgia are 2 states where Republicans have actually lost ground compared to really everywhere else, where Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan doesn't have voter, but we can see it in the inference models that those states are getting more Republican. Arizona and Georgia are getting less. They will take efforts like this for Republicans to keep their coalition together. Every bit counts, unless they completely change up the map, which is not going to happen anytime soon. So my feeling is, anyway, more successful campaigns are more national campaigns. You speak to everybody, never leave anybody out. You have to be realistic about where you can and cannot compete. But Democrats are so much better at looking for opportunities on the map. Maybe we can't win it this time, but where can we compete 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 8, 12, etc. And they do the groundwork to get it done. And Republicans have not traditionally. You heard Matt. I can't even tell you. He is so on the money. When after the election, there's no way anybody could promise they could overturn an election. But all of a sudden, the checkbooks came out. Right, Laura? You're in the chat. You could tell. The checkbooks came out. How much do you need to do this? How much do you need to do that? I mean, that was never going to happen. It's not realistic. You look at a state like Georgia, the best Republicans could have hoped for was to find the areas that were problematic, which I believe we did help identify quite a bit. And moving forward, they had that January 5th runoff. They didn't move quick enough. They didn't, and these other efforts that I've been critical of, Matt's been critical of, Robert has been critical of, Robert Barnes. A lot of these people are well-meaning, but they did not contribute positively to this discussion. And that's going to take a lot of undoing to fix that. And it sucks. It really does. Because there's only so much time in a day. There's only so much message that you can fit into somebody's ear. And if you got to spend those resources undoing something, it's that, it's that much more that, just got an update on Virginia. I sent out some additional stuff. Let me see. Where we got? 65 plus is basically done. 18 to 24 looks perfect. 25 to 29 looks perfect. 30 to 39 looks perfect. That swing vote, we've done good, but, let's see where it goes. I just see no point to do 18 to 39 anymore, Laura. We have enough 18 to 39 to oversample, way beyond the target quotas. So that's good. But in Virginia, that is 18 to 29 is going to go Democrat. 30 to 45 is going to go Democrat. It is that, or 44. 45 to 64 is the swing vote. 65 and above will go Republican. It's that second generation to third generation, 45 to 64, that will decide the governor's race. All right. Yeah, so quick to give opinions. Many of these people had no experience whatsoever. It is a big grift, Courtney. I mean, many people have, and some of them are well-meaning, but that doesn't change the fact that they wasted a lot of money and they made a lot of statements that simply are not true. I mean, if I didn't want to embarrass certain people, I would show you, or if I did want to embarrass certain people, I would show you some of these email threads after the elections. The stuff that was hit in my inbox when it started as, hey, what's the problem? What could have happened? Where are there areas that could have been exploited? Went completely off the rails in the left field stuff that somebody like me who's been doing this for decades never even heard about. What the hell are you talking about? That is not how votes are processed in this country. I don't know of no state where that could have happened. I mean, just way out in left field stuff. All right. We missed the break time. I'm going to take a real quick break. We'll come back. I'm going to grab some water. We'll come back and we'll give a little peek before we go, which we're going to go soon, but we'll give a little peek about what is going to happen with this Virginia poll moving forward. All right. You're watching Inside the Numbers. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, let me end that early. All right. We're back inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, People's Pundit. You follow me on Twitter, of course, still at People's_Pundit, on Getter at People's Pundit, but join the data revolution. Revolution in data journalism. peoplespundit.locals.com. And of course, the Public Polling Project, folks. I'd like to not have a Christmas poll. The holidays are the holidays. I don't know about you, but I got kids, so I'm sure we should probably do it. Maybe around Thanksgiving. I don't know. We'll see. But, it's up. bigdatapoll.com/public polling project. All right. I think, just I was looking at some of the chatter. I really do think that I was a little bit surprised with the audit in Arizona at how thorough they were with some stuff. I was. But I think at the end of the day, the only way you can answer the ultimate question is by doing what we did and what Matt did, which is pull the records, call them on the phone. And what we said was we were conducting interviews to check the accuracy of information. It's that simple. Hey, this is Rich from wherever. With Matt's organization, Look Ahead America, we were Big Data Poll, and we're working with a voter file vendor to double check the accuracy of election records. Did you request an absentee ballot on this date? Did you submit your absentee ballot on this date? Did you submit one at all? And the fact remains, that's not what happened. And that's the only way. It's like, you could physically do it like a canvas. I meant to ask Matt, it was on my damn list of questions, what he thought about that canvas that I did see some people did. But these were a lot of what concerns me about that canvas is people, I don't know how trained they were. And I understand they were trained to do this. It's very difficult to train a large group of people to do a physical canvas like that when there is so much minutia about elections and how they're conducted. So with Laura and I, we just felt that was just too important to outsource and wanted to do it ourselves. Otherwise, I would find myself double checking the information of other people anyway. Like, how could I trust somebody called so-and-so and it came back? I'm not casting aspersion on their character. I'm just saying, did they log this information correctly? So that's why it takes so long. It reminded me of, my old, whatever you want to call it, stock jockey days. It's like a numbers game, going through a list of people and just calling and then checking the records with the state and calling, checking the records with the state, pulling the voter file vendor. It takes a lot, but that is what it would take to really get the information, to really get to the point where I know for certainty this is what happened. And that's why I do believe we need to just fix how it's done to begin with, because one of the more ridiculous things I've ever heard was that statement, and I know it's true. It just is ridiculous on its face, which is the truth is there's no, however it was put, but along the line of there's no way to fully audit, what happened in this election. Well, then that is a fundamental flaw with our system. It should be very easy to audit an election. I mean, there are other countries that do this a lot better than we do. We're supposed to be the leaders of the free world. It's a joke. It's the truth. And everything, every bit of misinformation, whatever you want to call it, leads to more distrust. The simpler and the more transparent is the way to go. I mean, it can be done. It absolutely can be done. All right. Battling 2-year-old, to join the community. All right. Let me just give you a little heads up here before we go. There will be processing of Virginia today. You will get some of that. I think probably will be one article on CD, but I will get you the link locals to the crosstabs where you can view it all. Of course, I may even make like a little dashboard. It's just sometimes when these polls are that big, and it's pretty long, it's a pretty decent sized poll. There's a lot of information, and the dashboard doesn't really display it correctly. So instead, we just give you the link to the interactive crosstabs where you can play around with it, Yeah, they did. They fought. That's true, Mikael. They fought them every inch of the way. They did. And that was by design. So if public figures like the Secretary of State could make comments the way they made it and then pretend like it wasn't open to bipartisan review, which it was, then later, if they didn't like what they found, they could say, well, this was a Republican Trump recount, like a Trump audit. That's just simply not true. That's just simply not true. It was by design. They did that by design. All right. What else? 4:30, around 4:30. If you guys watch John Frederick's show, it'll be on John Frederick's show. But keep an eye out for this poll, which I'm going to crunch right now. All right. I really, Joel, come on, man. I'm not going to repeat that, but that was funny. Just look down and the comments are moving up, and I just look down and see a provocative, explicit joke. It was funny. But yeah, we do. Laura's right. We appreciate all your time, love, and support. And the locals community, on this community, every community, whether you're on Rumble, you're on YouTube, we love you all. Always do. And appreciate the support. We're going to go get that ready, wrapped up for you. And we will see you. What is it today? See you at 4:30 on John Frederick's if you watch. But we will see you on the next Inside the Numbers, which is Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Locals, you'll see us, of course, before that. All right, so with that in mind, keep an eye out on the Locals page, Locals folks, for that result. We will see you very soon. The screenshot. What is that? Laura said, don't forget the screenshot. What did I want to screenshot again? I think it was top issues. Well, all of that will be available soon anyway. So, they'll be able to look at it anyway. But that's right, I did forget some screenshot. Yesterday. It'll be up anyway soon, though, Laura, so it won't matter. Honestly, it'll be, by this time, I meant to do it yesterday. It'll be up anyway very shortly, so, it's a moot point. All right, folks, I'm going to run. See you guys very soon. Keep an eye out on the feed. All the best.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. And take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show